Hi, welcome to the McSherryStudio. Please don't forget to click the like button and also the subscribe button, and you will get notifications of all the new painting videos that I put up on this YouTube channel. If you like the paintings that are done in these demonstrations, you can always acquire one, and you can do that from my website, McSherryStudio.com, and there's a link in the description below. The like and subscribe buttons are just below this video on the right-hand side. Otherwise, paint oils, paint small, and paint often. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is make a wash, because you don't paint on a pure white board. Well, I don't anyway. Some people do, but they usually do that in the full knowledge that they're going to absolutely cover, well cover the actual gesso, the white gesso. But I always like to have a wash because it comes through sometimes, and it can add something to your painting. Okay, so I'm making this just kind of like the consistency of milk. And that's the burnt umber, okay? Go back. All right. And I'm just going to apply that. Can you see the whole thing? I'm trying to make sure you can see the whole thing. That's a bit better, isn't it? I'm just going to draw with the burnt umber as well, okay? And you kind of have to imagine that you're there in this circumstance. Obviously, we can't be, and it'll be a while before we can do this kind of stuff really regularly. So we'll be working a lot from photographs. So you have to make something of the photograph. I was talking about the, the nature of photography, and it records very well, but when you turn them into paintings, it can look quite dull. So at this stage, it's just drawing, so this is not going to make too much of a difference. Let's have a look, so across there like that. If you were actually there, you would have to be doing all this by eye. So you just try and get in the abstract shapes first. Halfway we have the lip of that that wall. That kind of stretch coming down there, comes in a little bit there. There's this block here, comes down beneath that, but it comes beyond that. Okay, we've got the flowers there, geraniums by the looks of things. All of this can be sort of adjusted later. We're just trying to get a reasonable sort of, maybe we can bring that up a wee bit. That bit is all dark there. Got the top of that wall there. There. And the gates coming across here. We can sort of, that's a dark really. Okay, we've got that window there. It would be nice to take a house there, wouldn't it? And then we've got that pots there. I wonder, is it like some of those French villages and well, and English ones actually, where you're only allowed to use certain paints? Colors, I mean. Pot and pot. So that's all there. We've got that there, that's it. Let's give ourselves an idea of of how the shadows fall and the tone. Oh, there's little steps going up there, isn't there? It's an interesting feature. So bring that in a little bit. There. So that's in shadow. That's in shadow. Shadow across there. That's a bit higher than I have it there. That's kind of slightly darker than usual. That's all stone. There's a pot there with flowers. Flowers there we don't need, they're just details. There's the steps going up there. There's some kind of feature there. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's probably those little sort of Turkish features that they, little round tops on parts of the structure. Okay, so that's our sky then. Dark there. The wall kind of comes down there like that. Oh, next door's house has painted it. They've painted the whole thing kind of a dark ochre. And there's kind of shadows in there like that. I think that's the main part of the structure of this. All right, so let us start. Let's think about how we want to do this. I think that will make a dull painting if we don't do something with the color. Okay, so I want to, as a painter, emphasize the warmth of this place. It's obviously a warm situation. The sky is perfectly blue. The shadows are crisp and clear, and there's a lot of light. And the highlights are very bright on those pots. So it's obviously a very, very bright, warm place. But you can tell that from the photograph. But if you painted the painting like it, I think you'd lose something. So I'm going to do something with that white. It's not going to be white. It's not going to be like that anyway. It's going to be far more colorful, I think. Right, so I want to put in some of the dark shadows, which will give me a kind of a skeleton on which to hang the rest of the painting. So I'm going to make a very dark, because in those windows at the back and off to the right-hand side and in some of the foliage and the shadow of that gate, there's a lot of darkness. And I'm going to make that dark that we were talking about before, which is the blue and the burnt umber, with a kind of an emphasis on the blue, I think. I just use a little touch of oil just to help myself along there. Okay, and then here, that's very dark there. So here, that's all very dark in there. We can add in other parts of it later. Actually, do you know what? That moves out a little bit further. Now, paintings are all about making marks and then correcting them. Okay, this is nice dark in there. Some more. There's a nice dark running down here. Here. And here, of course. And in here, this part in the foliage, just going to give them a bit of a got an amorphous sort of few strokes there. 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 The gate again, coming down from there like that. With the lock. Okay, there's nothing else I can see, really. Okay, now, what else I'm going to want to do? I just want to put in a few darks to help me along as well. Along there. Oh, it's not very dark, is it? You know, I'm going to do something which is not in the photograph. I'm going to change the angle of that. I'm going to make it more sort of as if we're off to one side, because I think it's a bit too flat there like that. I think that gives us more of a slight bit more dynamism. There's another window there. And then there's a darkness up here. And all the time that we've got to remember, if we're standing out in the street, you know, on Santorini, the sun will be blazing down on our heads, even though you've got a great big floppy hat on. It's going to be sort of, it's going to be tough. You'll be sweating, you'll be drinking loads, you'll be sweltering and wondering, you know, when's it coffee time? I know you're probably doing that already. All right, so now the shadow areas, like there's certain shadows like here, definitely, and here. And we're going to use those. We're going to use those to actually sort of push out the lit areas. We'll probably make those lighter than they actually are. Obviously, the lightest areas are on the tops here because the sun is very high in the sky. We could change that slightly. We could make the shadows more sort of more dramatic because we're the painters and we can do that kind of thing. That one. Yeah. Okay. So obviously, this thing is going to be based around titanium white. Okay, so let's make up a bunch of titanium white. We're going to mix up the warm part of it first, not too bright because I want blue into it. I think our warm whites, you know, the brightest parts are going to be along these lines. A kind of warm pink. I mean, Mo will be laughing because I seem to sort of put pink into everything, but it really does make a difference. All right, so I reckon that our lit areas are going to be more like that than they are like that sort of bluey whiteness that you can see even in the lighter areas. Okay, so now I'm going to make the shadowed part, and we want the shadowed part to be, paintings are all about contrasts, aren't they? You know, even when they're not about contrast, the fact that they're not contrasty is a decision. And we know it's either light and dark contrasts, but you can also have color temperature contrasts. And that's what I want to work with this. So we've got this warmth, and now we want to make a kind of a lightish gray, which is cool. So we're going to use more blues and reds rather than yellows and reds. Or should I say blues and permanent rose rather than permanent rose and cadmium yellow pale hue, because you could these are very neutral, I think, in their temperature until you start mixing them, whereas you know, you could get a cadmium red and it's kind of always warm. So let me just make that a bit more bluey. We can put this layer down and then change it later. Okay, so here, for example. So it's a kind of a, it's a kind of a violet color, really. I've got to be a little bit circumspect about how I apply the paint first of all. Okay, said he, filling the whole thing in. There you are. And that's casting a shadow. That is actually casting a shadow, which I might actually exaggerate, because I think it might help just make the painting a little bit more like a painting. Okay, those are the only two walls that are facing right. Okay, so a bit down on those steps, bring that over a little bit. Okay, now there's a lighter version. Let's have a look, which for the moment I'll lighten. It's slightly lightened. Okay, so it's slightly lighter. You can see from the darkest shadow for the wall. Okay, and I'm going to start sort of painting these ones. It's not an absolute commitment just yet. This is on the same angle. Okay. I think I'm going to change that. That can be like that. That wall there. Yes, I'm going to change it. I'm not fond of that shade. Just the shade now, because it's, I think what it could be, what it might be nicer as, is the bright one that I made up. You remember it's sitting next to the shadowed version. So it's this one. You can't really see it. The camera's not picking it up very well. Okay, that down there. Do you know what I might do? I might put in that sky first. And I think the sky, I think I'm going to use ultramarine for this. Ultramarine and white. Because it gives a really nice, vibrant kind of sky. Put a bit of oil into that. And I'm going to put that in. But even the sky is going to change subsequently. Okay, so a bit more oil so that I can move it around a bit. Okay. Okay, just put that in there like that. Okay, there we go. And also the those kind of details, which are a kind of a grayish blue. You know, for example, the kind of, it's actually a greenish blue at the top of that roof, I suppose. Let's have a look. Put there like that. Let's put that in. I just mixed in a little bit of yellow into a blue and white mix, ultramarine and white mix. So let's see if I can actually make it. Okay, there's that. That's good. Okay, not going to do those window surrounds yet. I'll put in that kind of, I don't know, sienna wall. Okay, so what should we do? So red, yellow, and cobalt will give us a kind of a brownish color. My tablet just went off. Right, and then a bit more yellow, a bit of white. Kind of gives us that color there in here. You can always add in the details later. So the sun is splitting the rocks. We're hoping to get a cup of that famous Greek mud coffee later. Right, so let's do the pathway. The pathway is kind of a yellowy kind of piece. It's not like the walls. We'll block that in. So yellow, permanent rose, more yellow, a little bit of blue. Give it a bit more blue, more yellow, a bit more vibrance. Okay, we'll put it in that way. So we're just kind of blocking in. So this is the kind of stone out the front, and here too, actually. That almost comes up to the level of the pots. Okay, there, bit of a dark there. Let's do the pots. Pots, which are a kind of slightly, a blue that's heading towards green, I think. So I'll use the, ultramarine is a blue that's heading towards red on the color wheel. It's slightly going towards the red, and cobalt is more, sits in the middle of the blues, and so you can make it, if you want, headed towards a green more successfully. Because if you try to make a greenish blue out of ultramarine, it'd end up looking a bit brown because of the red component in the paint, in the, what do you call it, pigment. Okay. And a little bit of white. Give myself a bit of oil. I'm going to make it dark because parts of the pots are dark, so mixing a little bit of red, a bit of ultramarine, yellow. Give us the dark parts of the pots. So we've got the pots in shadow and the pots, the general body color. Okay, so paint, paint, paint. Shadow bit there. Shadow bit there. And there. God, they've got loads of them, haven't they? Yeah, that's it. There's a couple of bits there. Okay. And now the pots in the light. You're just putting down dabs. I've got to do an even lighter part of the pots as well, so a bit more white into that same mix. Just bear with me across the top there. There. Just a year ago, last May, I went to Portugal and I was painting out in the street in Silves. It's a place where I wanted to actually sort of bring everybody on a painting holiday before we got sort of, you know, locked down. I was just checking the place out. God, it does get uncomfortable painting out in the, I mean, it's lovely and everything, but my goodness, that was hot. God, I'd love to have got, God, I started looking at all sorts of programs on telly that were sort of about foreign travel. just a few. I know this is kind of detail, but I just need to get in some things that will help me judge the rest of the thing. So I'm going to move on back to the walls in light, and I'm actually going to beef up the color in them. Okay. I've just put more yellow, more white, more red. Okay. Bit of oils there. Now go back to our painting. It's more like it there. See, paintings are not photographs. You're telling a story, I think, more with a painting than you are. Well, I suppose some photographers are able to do it in their way, but we've got more latitude, I think. Yes, here, because that's like that wall. Why should it be different? And likewise, I don't know why that one should be so dark, but let's put in a bit of that there along there. And here, they're all facing the same direction. And you notice a lot of this kind of going on in Monet paintings. There's an awful lot of color in the areas where the sun is hitting surfaces. And down here even, we can put some of that warmth in there. That's all blue. Actually, do you know, we should do the rest of that gate. That will help. Sometimes you end up living in a painting and you sort of start concentrating on a particular area and you forget about the other parts of it. I do anyway. So let's mix up a kind of a mid to dark blue for those gates, which is based on ultramarine. I think you would get a successful blue like that out of ultramarine. A little bit of permanent rose into it. And we get something like, we want our painting to be bright, so we'll keep it bright. It looks brighter on the screen than it does on my palette, I have to say. I'm just looking at it there. Right, so let's go back up. Yeah. It looks brighter and greener on my computer screen. I'm not sure what it's like for you. Window panes. Let's put in those window surrounds, which are a bit like the pots. Going back to my palette, I'm going to make up that color again. It's a bit like it is the color that was on the roof, actually. Something like that. But I'm going to make it darker. I'm going to make it darker because I want it to stand out a bit more. Okay, let's go back to the painting and try and put some of those in. And that's up here as well. Up there. Okay. Let's go back to our dark. I'm just going to sort of beef that up a little bit here. Make more of that. Come across here. Now, back to our walls. So now I can start bouncing around from spot to spot, putting in little bits of color, because we've kind of done the blocking in stage, and now we need to start sort of looking at details a bit more. Okay, so now I need a darker part in those shadows. Just coming down those steps. I might change my brush soon. This is starting to get a little bit sort of too fat to be working these areas. Let me see if I've got a smaller brush. It's not a smaller brush, but there's a brush with a kind of a bit more sort of a corner on it. Let's see what we can do about the very brights on the tops of those walls. Just get some titanium white and put it into that warm, because we don't want it to be white. We want it to have that warmth that the yellow plus the permanent rose will give it when they're mixed in. And let's paint. Here, there's a bit up there. Across here. In there. Across the steps. There. Actually, the steps come across there. You can see going across there as well. And here. And down on the top of that wall there. And you're building up the painting like a mosaic in the top of that part as well. We missed that. It runs underneath there. Get the dark, move that up in there like that. Let's put in an idea of that sort of foliage that's running up the side here. So it's kind of like that, really. That's very dark. That's very dark there, and it's dark across the top of that. Must be another window there behind there. And there's all sorts of shadows going on there. Let's get in some green for the foliage. And green is yellow and blue. You get nice green there like that, but it's too toxic. It's too sort of too acidic a green, so we put a bit of red into it. And then go back to our painting. Come across there like that, where we see it there. Okay. Got some green across there. Where else we got it around here as well, sort of around there. There's something up against the wall there. That's about it for the mid-green, so I'm going to make a kind of a lighter version. Just put a bit of yellow into it and just give the impression that there are leaves hitting the light, being hit by the light. We'll start sort of where else do I see shadows? Push that in a bit there. Come down there like that. I'll just drag some of that shadow into this wall over here. Kind of gives it a bit of texture. And likewise here, push those bits of foliage in. And they can be they can go darker as they come down there like that. And that comes all the way across there like that. And round about now, you'd be starting to get a headache. And they come up, beyond whatever the roof line of that house there. Right, I'm going to put in some light greys in those windows because they need to be expressed too. So here, there's something going on in that wall up there. So now that I've blocked it in, I'm reading it as being slightly greener compared to what I thought was there. And so I'm going to take some of that leaf green. It must be reflecting something. And I'm going to put some of it in there. Because white basically is a collection of everything around it. So it must be reflecting something that we can't see. So there's everything in that up there. I'm even going to put it a little bit in there. Move that into there. And into here. Right. Can always come into that there. This part here, I'm just going to put something up there. That's a kind of a greenish color there. Right, what's going on up here is more that light. We can be a little bit sort of. Now, I'm going to change my. I'll change the camera. Okay, so this was my. You can see that pink in there. It's gone a little bit now because I've mixed more. I've made it lighter and slightly yellower. Because we want these light areas to be visually interesting rather than perfect representations of what's in the photograph. So, and always we're looking to sort of describe the sunshine and warmth on a light surface. So now we've got that kind of almost salmon pink plus a kind of a more yellowy version of it interacting together. I'm going to do the same thing here. Okay, a bit of it in there. Yes, I could push that over a wee bit, couldn't I? Meet it with the gate a little bit more. Okay. You push the paint into position. You know, you're not painting up to lines. You're kind of sculpting. You're pushing things, pushing paint around a bit so that you achieve the shape that you want. Okay, and here, what's going on here? Yeah, that can come out lighter there. Push that back, push that up. And the question is when do you stop? Now, when do you stop making it too photographic or whatever? It's always got to remain a painting. Push that gate over a little bit. Okay. Now let's see if we can sort of describe a bit of that gate. Actually, that can go up there. That's nice. It's the same blue there. Even in there. So that's not in the center, is it? And it's best not to get too specific with this because you'll leave yourself open to that's not that gate. I'm just using the blade of the brush to it's just got to say there's a gate here, really. Okay. Right, sky. I'm going to make a different version of the sky now. Okay, right. So that was, I think that was the sky there before. I'm just going to make a different sort of hue of the sky using the cobalt blue instead of the ultramarine. See what happens, okay? Let's go back into the painting. I'm going to, because skies really, blue skies aren't that interesting. Kind of almost have to make them interesting by putting other things into them. Okay, a bit more white. And once again, look at Monet's skies. And I'm now going to mix in a little bit of pink into the skies as well. There we go. I just made up a kind of a warm pink. I'm just going to sort of judiciously sort of bit more red. These things kind of happen if you do a lot of painting outside in strong sunlight. You do start to see things that possibly aren't there. You know, it's very strong sunlight. You're not supposed to be staring out at things in strong sunlight, are you? As painters, we're often seeing. You know, we're often looking at things for much longer than you would normally. You do start to. It's not hallucination. It's just. I suppose it's the act of the action of the sunlight on your retina, isn't it? It changes everything. Every time you look at something, it looks different. Now there's some sort of very, very light greys in the doorway. Oh, pardon me, I just bashed my earphones off the. No. We're not going to be overly descriptive here. Just need to put some activity in the window. Put some more brights. There's a lot of paint there. You'll see it when I finally show you the painting up close. I'll have to sort out that camera. It's a little bit sort of unfocused. Where else have we got there? I've added a little bit of permanent rose. For those of you who haven't been here for a while, which I think is you, Teresa, for the palette that I teach with, I use permanent rose, and it's just a kind of a more neutral red. Push that along there like that. I'm going to finish off those pots actually. So just going to get a light. The pots were all made up of this, weren't they? So just going to get a lighter version of that by putting a bit of white into it. lighten that as well. Oh yeah, I've got these two things here. It's going to lighten that the ochre sienna kind of wall here. Now, there is something I missed, isn't there? Here, that comes in there like that. In fact, that comes further over. I'm going to reflect these walls in the pot here. They're all quite, how would you say, they're very shiny, those pots. They are reflecting a lot. Geraniums. I just took some permanent rose over here and white. It's quite a cool pink with some of those geraniums, okay? There's warm reds and cool pinks there, isn't there? And so you just, to do that, I'm just going to, I load the brush. And just dab them on. Go fill up any other spaces. You can actually sort of do more paintings, sorry, more blossoms there than there actually are, because it's nice to help the painting along. And I've made some more red. I've also built up those a little bit because they look nicer that way. Here, just an impression. You're just dabbing on bits, and more pinks along here. Get the shadow to put in a little bit of kind of light hitting areas here. One, oh, a bit more light. Lighten it as it comes towards the horizon. Yeah, can I bring any of that into here? Yeah, why not? Just lights, white areas are multicolored. And I'm going to lighten those a little bit more as well now. Some sort of variations going on in here, just to give that a little bit of contrast with the surface it's turning onto. And these shadows are too dark. Remember, I did them at the very beginning just to... Right. I hope this can focus a bit better than the other camera.
Oh, fabulous, Kevin.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Love it.
So just to see, I don't know whether you can see the
Oh, you can see the paint, yes.
Yeah,
texture,
you can
yeah.
see the texture now.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so
Oh,
if you, I'm telling you, if you're there in a place like that, you'll want to paint quickly. If you're in Ireland and you're outside, you'll want to paint quickly as well, because it doesn't matter. There's always something.
Yeah.
There's always something. There's the
yeah.
in Ireland the weather changes like at the drop of a hat, you know.
Yes.
There it doesn't change. It's just relentless heat, you know, or you're governed by time, because I think the days in the summer are shorter than here, aren't they?
Yes,
They're
the
much further
sunset
south.
earlier.
Yeah, so there's always something. So you always have to paint quickly. So that's why when you paint a scene from a photograph, you have to change it. You have to simplify it, and you have to sort of make it look as if you had actually been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin, thanks a million.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
And we
Yes,
see you
thanks very
next
much,
week.
Kevin.
Cheerio,
Next
and
week.
nice to see you all.
Bye,
Okay,
everyone.
bye. Bye.
You too.